County Commissioner John Willis. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Good morning. Man, it's exciting to be here.
Always exciting.
You guys got me coming up to Aaron.
It's tough.
Public information.
You know what?
Dude,
that's like following Michael Jordan in a dunk contest. No one wants to do it.
He's very good at it, man. He does some really great presentations.
Well, today you wanted to talk specifically about something that's kind of connected to the MLK corridor.
Most definitely.
Because that's a neighborhood that saw stunted growth because of lending practice
Yes, sir.
known as redlining.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So in 1933, coming out of the Depression, President Roosevelt came up with what they called New Deal era programs. One of those programs was Federal Housing Administration, Homeowners Loan Corporation, where the Homeowners Loan Corporation was designed to help generate wealth in our country by taking care of mortgages, people that were underwater, people that needed loans. These companies were created, New Deal programs, to generate wealth in our country. Well, for the South Side, communities like that, they were put in a certain area that kind of defined them as a place to not lend money. The government basically set up 4 levels, A, B, C, and D, where they were to lend money. So A properties, that's the good. They were defined on in Jackson, for the Jackson redlining map. They did these what they call residential security maps, which became the redlining map known as redlining maps. Here's one right there. You can kind of see the areas.
And these were not public information, John, were they?
No, this was not something that was widely known to the public,
No.
just among banking institutions and organizations. And they kind of classify, for example, Jackson, the A area, which is you kind of see the green, Essex Heights area, that was kind of known as the area, the highest, the best at that time, $15,000, $16,000 properties. But it was identified by the appraisers for the Homeowners Loan Corporation as 100% American.
Wow.
So that's actually written on the map for Jackson.
Now, in 1976, Kenneth T. Jackson came upon one of these maps, and that's kind of what really kicked off a lot of the noise.
Discussion.
I mean, it's unbelievable that this was
T.
happening.
He's kind of the godfather.
Yeah.
Most definitely, and it shows the correlations between what happened in those maps is what he started putting together. How it still affects, for example, the map that they're seeing on the screen now. It shows the red area from 1935, and how segregation was in Jackson still in 2020. So there's some lasting effects from it, health outcomes, life outcomes, wealth, and home ownership. So a lot of these things are affected. The number one way in our country today to generate wealth is still home ownership for families that make less than $200,000. So you see in the maps there, that shows the 1960 census home ownership in Jackson versus today, where it's 24%. In that area where you see the 67 right there.
Let me ask you about just the industry as a whole. Nationally, only 6% of realtors or brokers are black. That's just a staggering number, really, in that industry. Just not a correct representation of the need.
Right. It's the need for and the understanding of how communities became those communities.
Right.
I think are the most important things. So a lot of times, for me personally, I feel like I'm from Jackson because I've been here since high school, but I didn't really know how the South Side became the South Side. So when you see it, you talk to people have different impressions. Some people say, well, community didn't come together to do this, or people didn't take care of their property. And when you find out, it's more to that. There were some intentional things that happened. There was one of the slides that you showed. It actually showed them identifying who banks were not to lend money to. They wrote on the sheets that undesirables were aliens and Negroes. They literally wrote that on paper. So you see it, and you don't bring it up.
To talk about bettering a community.
Exactly.
That eliminates community.
Right. It does. It does. It eliminates a group of people specifically and causes a disparity. So we have to mention it. We have to talk about it. We have to be intentional in conversations about how do we recover from that. Think about the 3 major things that were supposed to happen to those New Deal programs were relief, recovery, and reform. So we still, that's where some of those communities are today, still in need of relief, recovery, and reform to make sure those things can never ever happen again.
How important is it for our city residents to be able to have the opportunity to better their own financial situation so they can remain here and thrive in this community.
I think that community empowerment, that home ownership, different things like that, that's what changes communities. That's what changes communities. I always go back to Ken Dillon. You know Ken Dillon. I attended Ken Dillon's funeral, my sons and I, and everything that a person needed was present at that funeral. That community was so solid, so strong. It left a lasting impression on me. But that ownership, that ability, that strength of empowering a community to take ownership for itself, as opposed to somebody coming in and rescuing that community, that's very, very important. So that's what MLK-CIA is looking to do, to empower, to transform, and empower, transform, and then excel.
And this is a lot of money coming to this area. This is an exciting time.
Yeah, and this is probably a once in a lifetime, thing where you're getting those American Rescue Plan Act funds coming in, and to be able to use those from the city, to be able to collaborate with the county, different areas to try to improve areas that we may not get a chance, a second shot at doing like that again in our lifetime. I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
So.
How important is it for Black families that live in the area to take hold of this project and take ownership, be involved, and be in part of deciding how the money's spent, deciding what happens to the neighborhood? How's that input?
That's crucially important, Barry, because that's what inclusion is. Inclusion is to say, I tell people all the time, on a low, I'm a silent hip hop head, right? So I'm a Jay-Z guy, right? I like my soul food. But say I bring you to a party and the only thing I have is music I like. Only thing I have is food I like. Only thing I have is decorations I like. You and Bart probably not gonna hang around too long. You see John, that's cool. But the importance in that inclusion is bringing everybody to that table, making them a part of that conversation. So MLK-CIA is not just a plan that's being created at City Hall, or not just a plan that's even being created by that authority itself, but engaging those residents so that they have an active part, so they're getting the things that they need and desire to see in that community. And they haven't been included that way before, so this is a first. And a lot of people, to be honest with you, Bart, they have some questions, they have some doubts, like, hey, are we really going to be a part of this, or just going to do the same thing that's always been done? So we're striving to show where we're doing some things different in Jackson. We're including some communities that are not normally included in decision making, getting their input and following some of those things.
I would say it's also a chance to, as you mentioned, the food, the music, to establish the culture of the community in the area, much like the way there are Little Italies and Chinatowns in other communities. As you invigorate, celebrate those things that add to the neighborhood of the community.
Diversity makes us better, period. Not just Black and brown communities, but diversity of all nature. Diversity is just any difference that makes a difference. When we are aware of those diversities, we include people with those different diverse backgrounds, of different diverse ethnicities, religions. We become better as a community because we're understanding more, we're talking, and we're considering the opinions, the needs of other people outside of our circle. The natural tendency is to be attracted to people like us. That's the natural tendency.
Yeah. So. Are we sure that redlining is not still happening?
I have some questions about it, but I'm not. I mean, there are other ways to go about it. There are things that still happen based on exclusionary practices or policies that we've had in the past. So I think it's important that we do start to review and eliminate any practices or policies that may be exclusionary, whether those are purposeful or done with intent, or even if it's accidental. If we have any policies or practices that cause disparities, they need to be reviewed and taken a look at.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you're taking the lead on this and helping connect the community to some potential resources and just bringing the subject up. So we're going to improve the South Side. Those conversations have to happen.
That's the conversation. That's important to not just have the conversation, but to make sure we're taking steps, deliverables to each of those conversations. And that's the part of it. Jackson has been good in having these conversations with us, and we're hoping to keep maintaining those steps that we need.
Awesome. Always good to see you, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for having us here, man. I'm excited to be right here with the JTV Television Network family. Awesome.
City of Jackson and Jackson County Commissioner John Willis. Duncan.